Welcome in. Appreciate you so much for joining me. It's your friend Juck, and it is showtime, and it is 3 days. 3 days to the game. I'm feeling some sort of way. How you feeling? The butterflies are bubbling up, man. The butterflies are bubbling up, and I was actually thinking today as we see this line come down to 10 points from originally 12 and a half. I was thinking about what's a similar game that I can kind of say, all right, this was a pretty similar line. And how was I feeling then? And you just got to go back to the national championship game. The national championship game against Notre Dame, against a Notre Dame team that Ohio State was, I believe, like an 8-point favorite against. So actually a slightly smaller favorite. And heading into that game, how did you feel? That national championship game for all the marbles. I felt nothing. I was totally confident. I knew Ohio State would win the game. And when I look at that Notre Dame team, and when I look at the coach of that Notre Dame team, when I look at the all-around talent of that Notre Dame team, the quarterback, the offensive line, objectively, it was just a flat-out better football team than 2025 Michigan. In my opinion, the metrics line up and say the same thing. Like, it was a better team. And I was supremely confident. I didn't feel any of the butterflies and the anxiety that I feel today, and that will only get ramped up as each successive day moves on here until Saturday. By the way, the folks that want to see this game played in the evening, it would be awesome. I agree with you, but I don't know how you could possibly get through your Saturday with this thing lingering and not starting until the evening. It would pretty much ruin my whole Saturday. And all the games that came on before, I wouldn't be able to enjoy because I wake up that Saturday morning, man, and it's different than any other day of the year for me. But going back to that Notre Dame, I was supremely confident, and I didn't think there was any way the Buckeyes would lose. So why is it when I think about this game every year, regardless of the circumstances, I feel so much damned anxiety? It's because it's a rivalry, and it is the best rivalry, and it sentences you, should you lose the game, to 365 days, an entire year of finger pointing and laughing and ridicule by the other guy. You lose a national championship, it hurts. You were so close, but if you root for a program like Ohio State that in most years gets themselves squarely in that conversation with another opportunity, by the time the preseason rolls around, you're on to the next season. You're on to the next mission. There's not that much time that goes by. You lose this one, it is 365, and we haven't seen a win, in our case, since 2019. It's a rivalry that is the best in sports, and people who attempt to downplay it, I question what it is that drew them into this sport, in particular, college football in the first place, because it's so much different in college football. And to me, college football always been superior because of its quirks, and because of the uniqueness, and because of the rivalries in college football that are unmatched by any other American sport we have. They are so much more intense. They are so much more deep-seated. They are so much more length to them, so much more history. The all-time series in this rivalry, 62 to blue, 52 to Ohio State, 6 ties. Now, technically, the record book states 51 to Ohio State because they take one off the record book for some nonsense. I refuse to. It's 62 to 52. There are some caveats, though. Michigan started playing football 11 years before Ohio State, and the series started off with them going 13-0-2 as Ohio State tried to build a program, and the other guys had a jump start. Now, Ohio State recorded their first win in 1919, and ever since that first win in 1919, Ohio State owns the series 51-49. Now, you can't really play with the numbers, but it'll make you feel a little better. I called Woody Hayes this morning. Since the first year he coached in 1951, Ohio State leads the series 39-31-2. Very close all the way around. For a rivalry to be great, it has to be close. And you need to experience great wins and great losses on both sides. And there is another reason that among other rivalries, this one stands out. and college football rivalries stand out. Every once in a while, you'll see on social media, depending on how much you're on social media, I don't know, but you'll see somebody, let's say, matter of fact, I saw one, I believe that a Michigan fan did at the national championship game between Ohio State and between Notre Dame. And he runs around. Actually, Notre Dame's probably not a good example. Yeah, it's a perfect example because it's a religion. But guy runs around with a microphone and he attempts to embarrass the fans by asking them, "Did you go to school here?" And it is so misguided and so it shows such a lack of understanding for college football and the history of college football and how we got here in the pride and the residence of states after the Land Grant Act of 1862, where these states built these universities, and it was the source of pride for everyone in that entire state. Whether they, obviously they didn't go there, they built it for the future of the state and how much these universities mean to the state economy and the state tax dollars that go into running them. And you also had rivalries between states, and the football programs came to represent our 11 Warriors versus your 11 Warriors. They were little microcosms for battles between states. And Notre Dame, that's a Catholic school. By the way, much of my family, when I was growing up, Notre Dame fans. As I'm Italian Catholic, that was, that's why they became what they became. Me, I felt it was proper as an Ohioan to be with these guys. And that's just the way I was. But when we look at the Ohio State-Michigan rivalry, it goes even deeper. And there are a couple others, Kansas, Missouri, that are like this too. But the Toledo War, a bloodless war, albeit in 1835 and 1836, the War of the Toledo Strip, or the Battle of the Toledo Strip. Ohio tried to block Michigan from statehood to gain control of the Toledo Strip, and no shots were ever fired. A sheriff did get stabbed with a like a makeshift knife or something, I read once, trying to make an arrest. So I guess it wasn't totally bloodless, but in the end, President Andrew Jackson intervened. Ohio gets Toledo, Michigan gets statehood, and they gain the Upper Peninsula, which by all rights should not belong to that state. It shouldn't. It should be Wisconsin's, but it is what it is. But rivalries like this between states played out through football programs long before. Let's put it this way. The history of the sport of college football, when you look at, if it were only to be alums and students who supported the football team, college football right now would look like the Ivy League. That's what it would look like. And I cringe when I see those idiots run around and do those videos. But we look at the state of Ohio. There are 3 NFL franchises that dominate the state of Ohio in the Browns, the Steelers, and the Bengals. But the Buckeyes are woven through the fabric of all 4 corners. One's a little more highly contested. And they unite the entire state. And if I had a time machine, one of the stops I would make, one of the stops on my list would be to go back to the Toledo Strip and tell one of those glorious Ohio militiamen that 200 years later, we are still fighting the good fight. I don't hate individual people. I never hate individual people who are Michigan fans, provided they're from there. The ones that are from here, I dislike them. I discriminate against them. I do. I don't really mince words about it. I never have. There are some exceptions, but they're few and far between. I kind of look at it like Jim Tressel. How you do something is how you do everything. And I grew up in the John Cooper era from the time I was 9 to like 22. So my formative years, and growing up in Northeast Ohio at the time, and I imagine it was, even worse in Northwest Ohio, there were a lot of Michigan fans. And most of them were simply Michigan fans because it is a quick, easy way to attach yourself to the winning side and just say, I like those guys. Mom, on my Christmas list, I want some Michigan gear. Some of them just wanted to be edgy or annoy people. All of those motives, all of them represent things I kind of despise. And when you would call them out on that, they usually said something like, oh, my cousin goes there. I actually have a cousin, my favorite cousin, who is a grad, but she actually grew up there. So, I can't hate on her for that. That was loyal. I respect loyalty. That's why I don't mind those ones on that side. That's their crew. That's who they are. But when I see a random stranger in Northeast Ohio with that stuff on, man, it's immediate disdain without even an explanation. It's just how it is for me, man. And I'm sure a lot of you can relate. And the players from Ohio that have gone up there, I hate them the most. I hate them the most, as that program would have never been anywhere what it's been without Ohio football players. Some of their best ever. And when you just run through the names, I hate Bo Schembechler. I hate Gary Moeller's turncoat ass. I hate Desmond Howard and Elvis Gerbach. I hate Charles Woodson. I hate Kyle Kalis and Mario Manningham, Taco Charlton, Diamante Thomas, Pierre Woods, Frank Clark. I hate them all. I hate them all so much. And when I see those uniforms, it just fills me with rage. I talked to Tony. Tony does the Michigan Monday. Tony Gerdeman, my buddy at Buckeye Huddle. And he watches every single Michigan game. Man, I'll try. And when I start to see them take the lead, I feel it bubbling up, man. And when I see them celebrating, when I hear the fight song, it's only so much of it I can do. But I feel like I have to now in this position to be able to speak about them in an educated way. It's been rough. I got to tell you, it's been pretty rough. When we watch them play and we see those uniforms on the field, I just love it. And when we see a little extracurricular start that might pop off a little violence in the game, it fills my heart with joy. And every year that there is a new highlight of a little bit of nastiness on the field, I feel like that is another check off the box of a mission accomplished. I feel good about it. I hate their winged helmet that started at Princeton. I hate high schools in Ohio that wear that winged helmet. I hate the Delaware Blue Hens. I hate their big, boring, ugly, intentionally built with strict instructions not to have any architectural beauty, just to be built for size, ugly stadium. That's a true story. And it is a big, ugly, hideous stadium that they tried to beautify by putting a couple brick walls up on the sides. It didn't work. The brick walls just look out of place, and it's still hideous. I hate Detroit and Ann Arbor and Grand Rapids and Battle Creek and Saginaw, Mackinac Island. I hate them all. I hate that they started playing football before us, and I hate that they hold the most wins because of that. Though they don't hold the best winning percentage, that's us. I hate that because they started early, they got gift wrapped a bunch of national championships in 1901 and 02 and 03 that they still claim, which is embarrassing. We were having a discussion on the Buckeye Huddle board just the other day, and this discussion has been rampant. And this one was actually a fair point by the gentleman who was just trying to say, look, if Carnell could potentially put himself in more, potentially a more dangerous situation playing out in the cold than he would for the Big Ten championship game indoors, wouldn't it be more prudent to sit him? And then he proceeded to say, the game's kind of lost its luster. Now, I understand his point, the first part, the second part, and I don't know, this may be a little bit skewed for me because doing what I do here, I talk to so many more football fans from all fan bases than I ever used to. But I feel like everybody is in on this with social media. But to me, when we look at the streak that's gone on right now with Ohio State having not won since 2019 on the field, the Stallions cheating, the way that fan base handled themselves, rubbed everyone's nose in it, the way their administration handled themselves, talked about lawsuits and this and that, the way they clowned Michigan State. Michigan State gets punished for doing what everybody else is doing now. And they just spent a week, just a couple weeks ago, making themselves look like idiots. And I said before, I'm not going to get mad about it. I'm not. I mean, I'm happy. I really am. I'm happy that they continue to let the rest of the country see what we've always seen about them. They're smug. They're arrogant. They look down their nose at people. They think they're smart. They think they're funny. And they're just the worst. And now everybody sees it. Everybody sees the disrespect they show for the game, for everything. You look at the fight last year, the pepper spray, Larry Ellison and his girlfriend and Dave Portnoy buying Bryce Underwood after Bryce Underwood publicly shamed them for lack of development and the reason he wasn't going there in the first place. And then you look at Fox jumping in bed with Dave Portnoy, Ryan Day's family being harassed, the NCAA admitting that they should be getting a multiple season postseason ban, but we're going to let them slide. Ryan Day's record against them. All of these things, all of them combined, have made this to me nastier than it's ever felt in my life. And that's why the fear of losing this thing is so great to me. And the fact that Ohio State somehow found a way to lose that game last year as the far superior team puts a little extra fear into you leading into this one. What about this one? I've long thought that since the end of the game last year, I might have even said it on the post-game show, certainly if not on the post-game show, the following show, if Ryan Day can somehow pull off this miraculous run and win a national championship, which at the time seemed like a pretty ridiculous ask, I think he'd be a different guy. I think he'd be a different guy when it comes to this game because he would have delivered to his team and the university and the state something that is the ultimate prize that nobody could ever take away from him. And just by virtue of that, he would coach this game like he coaches every other game. Well, he's done that, and we're about to find out. We're about to find out. One thing that is on the line for Ryan Day, a perfect 365. A perfect 365. From the end of this game last year, he went on to win 4 straight postseason games, including a national championship, and followed that up with 11 straight regular season wins. Should he win this game, he's got himself a Tiger Slam, a full 365 all the way around perfection in an era where they said it wasn't possible. 365 of perfect football that started with that glorious night in the shoe against Tennessee. 16 in a row. That included beating Texas twice, beating Tennessee, 3-0 against the SEC, whooping Oregon, whooping Notre Dame, Washington at home, in Seattle, beating Penn State, and will culminate in beating Michigan. That would be amazing. A true amazing feat. The stakes are huge for him. Getting his first win since 2019, bringing his record up, and people got different, everybody views his record differently. You may view his record as not actually what it says in the record book, and I don't have any problem if you view it that way. Nonetheless, all we can say is we have not seen that win on the field since 2019. We can all agree on that, because whether or not you want to go back and retroactively say, look, I don't count this win, I don't have a problem with you if you do that. But I do know this, when that happened, when that loss happened, the month after that loss, however long it is that it affects you personally, none of that's changing. You dealt with that. They robbed you of that, if that's what you think of the game. If you think it legitimately should have gone the other way, they robbed you of that. You felt that. We haven't felt the joy of winning it, is my point. We haven't been able to feel that and talk that, and it's been too long. And it has to end. It absolutely has to end. Also on the line, a trip to Indianapolis, a chance for Ryan Day's third Big Ten championship, a chance to see a 1-versus-2 matchup against another program that needs to get their comeuppance. Nobody on this team has beaten the Blue. This would be the second graduating class in a row. And that's a stat we used to make fun of them for. We used to tally up how many they had that never beat Ohio State. This would be multiple on our side. And he's got to take his team up there with his basically rookie play caller, his new defensive coordinator, his new starting quarterback, and his very young team, and Michigan, a very young team as well. They're the second youngest in the conference. And as we enter the game, this Buckeyes defense somehow better than last year's defense. And I saw some Michigan fans, media members tweeting, I've been watching Ohio State, and this defense isn't very complex, really. They're just good players. And if he's been watching the last 5 games, he's right, because Matt Patricia hasn't done anything. It's just been base, shut it down, and smother them, boys. And that's what they've done. They haven't had to and chose not to do anything on defense. It's been quite boring when we look at these last 5 games. I don't personally feel it's been advantageous to have so much lack of competition for that long of a time heading into the game. Not that it's, going to change the end result, but perhaps a slow start. I don't know. We'll see if it has any effect at all. But Ryan Day on the field after the last win against Rutgers, he was excited. So I was really looking forward to his press conference on Tuesday. And I went down to the press conference on Tuesday, and I'm sitting here listening to Ryan Day and watching his mannerisms, and I'm starting to feel really good. And then he drops the line that he said on the Pat McAfee show. He said on the Pat McAfee show, fun is kicking ass. And it's very out of place to what he usually says behind that podium. And the whole thing just had me feeling like, man, he is loose. He feels confident. And I'm thinking back to last year, thinking, I don't feel like he felt this way last year. So I went and I dug up last year. And I listened to all 20 minutes of his pre-game press conference last year on Tuesday before the game. And I spliced together just a quick 15 seconds of last year versus this year, which I'll play for you now.
Because, when you go through the offseason and you talk about this game, it's just like, all right, well, how many times are we going to talk about this? We got to get to this game and go play it. We're finally here right now. You got to play through the year, and there's a lot that goes with it. And it's a building process and a foundation. And, we're finally here. So this is the best part of it. We've been waiting a long time to get back to this week. I'm excited about this game. I'm excited about this team. I love the look in their eye, and that's it. And so, this team right here is a different team. They have a great look in their eye. And I don't want to get too much into the past because we're just focused on right now. What has happened in the past really has nothing to do with what's going on right now. Yeah, I mean, the team who runs the ball is going to control the game.
Uh-oh. Well, maybe I'm telling myself because I want to believe that he's more confident. But to be honest, that's a little funny just because I noticed that I heard some of the very same things. But I do think that he is a little looser, his overall demeanor throughout the full 20 minutes. It does feel more loose now. He does seem more confident. But how could he not have been confident last year? Was it overconfidence? I don't think so. And actually, the more time goes by, the less I buy in. I don't want to say buy in. The less I think that that at the forefront of his mind was showing he's going to win this game and win it tough, which coming off of that game, that's certainly how it felt. it did have a lot to do with field position, why they ran the ball so much. And it did have a lot to do with Will being banged up. I do think it played a factor. I think all of those things did, though. Whereas I think immediately after the game, and this is how we're wired as people, we want to be mad and we want to point the finger at someone and be able to blame someone for why we hurt. That's how we are. The more time goes by, you look at it maybe a little bit more clear, and I'm sure some of you don't agree with me on that, but I think that had maybe less to do than I originally felt with it. But I guess the big question is here, how does Ohio State win this game or keep from losing this game? Michigan's defense last year had the horses in the middle to shut down Ohio State. Those guys aren't there. They're not there anymore. They do have some good defensive linemen, particularly on the edges. Their defense ranks 29th in the Football Efficiency Index, which isn't great. They're 15th in points per game, 17.9. Ohio State is first, 7.6, 10 points difference allowed. Neither of these teams have played a rough schedule. Rushing yards allowed per game, 94 for Michigan with a 3.0 average. Ohio State, 80 yards a game allowed with a 2.7 average. Total yards per play. This is an important stat and a telling one. 4.7 yards per play for Michigan. That's 16th in the country. Ohio State, number one, just 3.8 yards per play. The Buckeyes allow 12.7 first downs. That's second in the country to Indiana. Michigan is 26th. They allow 17.5 first downs. Total yards per game. We have got 100 yards difference, essentially. Ohio State, 206 yards a game. Michigan, 302. So defensively, on the year, the Ohio State defense far superior to this Michigan defense. This Michigan defense, how about when they played their toughest opponents? USC gashed them for 224 on the ground. Keep in mind, I'm sure most of you watched that game. USC had to pull walk-ons into the game. They got fined because they pulled a walk-on into the game who was on the injury report. Like, this dude wasn't even supposed to be playing. And they pulled him into the game. And he rolled. Gashed him for 224 on the ground, 265 passing. Now, the SC offense is good. So is the Ohio State offense. Oklahoma passed it for 270 yards on them, 138 rushing yards. Oklahoma, remember, John Mateer shot up as the number one Heisman candidate after that game. He was never the same since. He did have an injury, and people try to make excuses the first couple of games back after that injury, but it's clear John Mateer isn't that caliber of quarterback. He sure looked like it after playing them. Nebraska, Dylan Raiola passed for 308 yards on them. Just 43 rushing yards due to the terrible offensive line. Against Washington, they held Damon Williams to 200 yards passing, but Damon had his worst game ever, turned the ball over quite a bit, 40 rushing yards for Washington that day. So they really shut them down on the ground. Michigan State's terrible team had 190 yards passing on them and 115 rushing. So those are their five top competitors this year on their schedule. I don't think they did so hot. If I was them, I wouldn't be feeling so great. How about the Ohio State offensive game plan for a victory? And I guess we should start with JJ and Carnell. Everybody by now has heard JJ on Kayla's podcast, and this is no surprise. In my opinion, JJ was always playing in this game. The dude is an absolute warrior. We knew from Ryan Day's comments 2 Tuesdays ago that he did not further his injury in the UCLA game, which means he walked in to the UCLA game already injured, and it was an injury that could not get any worse from playing, or else they would not have allowed him to play at all. But he clearly wanted to, so they let him play the first half. And we saw the end result of what it looks like when JJ plays right now with this injury. He's sore as hell. We saw that on the sidelines in the whole second half. We normally don't see JJ when he's done playing, limping around. He's usually, they're gone. They're off the field. This time we just got to see it. Did he maybe lay it on a little thicker? I don't know. Little gamesmanship could have been. The Carnell situation, my personal belief is an extreme amount of caution to make sure Carnell was ready to go for this game, not the Big Ten championship or the playoffs. I think he could have been back 2 games ago. I think they're both playing, and I think they're both 80+% of themselves. And 80+% of them, if I'm right, it's a lot of percent of excellent receiver. It's a lot that they don't have. When we look at these guys offensively, Bryce Young, Underwood, he certainly ain't Bryce Young. Bryce Underwood, this guy can hurt teams with his legs. Ohio State has the ultimate eraser for that, and that is Arvell. Demond Williams is there's that one clip from Washington where Demond Williams tries to shake Arvell and realizes he's not going to be able to do that, and he doesn't even try the rest of the game. Now, Bryce Underwood clearly does not have the ability to shake as well as Demond Williams. Does he have the power to run through Arvell? Well, no, he doesn't. So Arvell can erase him. Erase him. Should they choose to play it that way? They got a good running game. Is Jordan Marshall playing? I suspect he does. I think he'll, be at his best. I think his injury is a shoulder injury. It's not going to hurt his running game. They're going to make Bryce beat them with his arm. Can he do it? He's got a great wide receiver in Andrew Marsh, a big wide receiver in Donovan McCauley, who's inconsistent with his hands. We're talking about a team. Ohio State has 5 drops on the year. Let me take that back. They had 5 drops on the year before heading into the Rutgers game. There's might be a couple more on there. But Michigan, I had checked their drops at that point in the season, and they were at 19 drops. So they drop a lot of balls. But, guys sometimes come up big in these games, or it goes the other way. But Andrew Marsh is he's going to be a star. But Bryce is going to have to beat them through the air. Seeing some complex stuff he's never seen before. Is he going to be able to do that? I find it hard to believe. I find it real hard to believe that they're going to be able to score much unless Ohio State turns it over and makes it easy for them like they did last year. So let's take it to the Ohio State offensive game plan. What's the winning game plan? What I'd love to see, we know one thing for sure. Wink Martindale is going to pressure the heck out of Julian Sayin by any means necessary. Now, this Michigan team has not been able to get 4-man pressure, which means he needs to bring an extra guy. It's a good thing for Ohio State that Julian Sayin is an unbelievably quick processor and seems to know where his check down is and be able to fire the trigger off to them immediately, faster than anybody in college football. So they can go ahead and do that all they want. I'm a little more worried about the stunts. Stunting defensive linemen against Wisconsin and against Purdue. Purdue was a little bit of an eye-opening moment. They did it a lot. The Buckeye offensive line had a real rough time with it. A real rough time. But the Ohio State offensive line, I think, has played 2 really good games in a row. And you can say, well, the competition, the rushing statistics for UCLA and Rutgers, they were like 90th and 130th in the country. And that's maybe why Ohio State had such exaggerated good running days those days. And I believe that probably had something to do with it. But here's what I saw. I saw considerably less mental mistakes. Mental mistakes are what was killing Ohio State's offensive line in Wisconsin and Purdue. Clean up the mental mistakes, And I see Julian staying clean. I see him staying clean. Now, he'll take a couple of shots. I think Jayshawn Barham's a dude. I think that Phil Daniels struggles in pass blocking at times. And I think that maybe he might get through a time or two. But quick game, live RPOs. Remember, these RPOs have been shut down for most of the year. Shut down. Julian's great at it. Check downs with the running backs. How many times a couple games ago did we see Bo and Isaiah just getting the check downs right down the middle of the field, turn and go, 15 yards, free 15 yards. JJ and Carnell after the catch or on the outs, 10-yard outs, 20 yards run after catch on short routes. Like, I think that Ohio State has the ability to paper cut this defense to death, and they can't do anything about it. Nothing. And all I really want to see is start the game with that. Don't start the game trying to soften them up with a run and get yourself behind the sticks. And before you know it, you've surrendered 2 possessions early. And then you say, okay, well, I guess we can't run. We better throw. No. Make them adjust to that pass game that is being successful immediately. And then let that open up that run for you. That is something I really hope we see, because if they get themselves behind the chains and give away the first couple of possessions, I think it's imperative that they start off hot here. And I would hate to see that. I really would. Michigan's game plan here on defense is to try to limit possessions in this game, which, as we know, has been Ohio State's MO all year. And Ryan Day talked about it just a couple of weeks ago and basically said, you sit down at the beginning of the year and you talk about your overall goals, your overarching goals. And yeah, we wanted to limit plays, but now it's just become kind of a habit of who we are offensively. We huddle, we take our time, try to be as efficient as we can on every play. And as a result of that, they're a very slow playing team. They play very limited possessions. They play 8. Sometimes they squeeze a 9th possession in there. This is excluding, end of game kneel downs or halftime kneel downs because there's no time left. But they're playing like 8 possessions a game. They've had halves of football where they played 3 this year at Washington. And 4 is commonplace. Well, an 8 possession game, if you have 2 fluky turnovers, well, now you've given the other team 10 and you've had 6. If you get on your horse a little bit, a couple possessions throughout the game, and you play 11 offensive possessions and you have 2 fluky turnovers, well, you've had 9 and they've had 13. That is a lot less damaging than 10-6. And I think that I would really love to see a little bit of quick game. We've only seen one damn 2-minute drill the entire season, I think. I really think it's only been one. And it was right before halftime in one of these recent games. It might have been Penn State. No, it wasn't Penn State. We fumbled. We fumbled right before the half at Penn State. Donaldson fumbled. But there's only been one. It's right before a halftime. They drove it right down. They're so good at it. Julian is so fit for it. It looks unstoppable. I would certainly love to see them mix this in just to make sure that they get at least one more possession in this game than they've been averaging. Just to protect them from a couple of fluky turnovers that might happen. If you get beat in this game by a couple of turnovers because you were playing so slow and magnified those couple of turnovers, it will kind of feel like a self-inflicted wound to me. Because we're now at the point, okay, this is it. We're at crunch time now. There is no more reason for the strategy of we're going to play less to limit plays. There's no, okay, that's over. We did it. 11 games to get to here. Now it's time to let it all rip. This is the postseason starts now. As Ryan Day said, this is when the hardware comes. and they're playing for these guys right here. They count this as hardware. So those are my thoughts on the game. Ultimately, I don't think that Michigan will score more than 14 points. And I think Ohio State will score 34. I think this game is a game that the Buckeyes strike early and often. And by midway through the second quarter, we never feel relief during that game, but it's going to be like, come on, clock. Let's get this over with. And Ohio State is in a great position. And I'm just saying, like, if this were any other team, if I'm just looking at these two teams and I'm looking at Ohio State playing this matchup, I'm not scared of this game at all. The only reason I'm scared is all the baggage that comes with it and the fear of the loss that comes with it. So I'm going to choose to look at it just logically and say that there is absolutely zero chance on earth that the guy I consider the best head coach in college football is going to screw this up this year. Not after last year. There's no chance he screws it up. There's no chance that he lets things in his head make him make dumb decisions, because he won a national championship. He knows he's the best. He knows he's got the best organization with the best staff, with the best players, and he knows that they certainly do not. These are two drastically different programs, man. So that's the final prediction. The official JUCK'S prediction, 34-14, Ohio State Buckeyes. This ends Saturday. Appreciate you guys. Talk to you soon. JUCK'S Bucks out.